Thank you, everyone, very much for coming this evening. We are delighted at the CPS to be publishing Peter and Francis's great work. It is not only a very important work, it is also an incredibly enjoyable work for those of us who have been on the right side of the fence for so long and so pilloried for so long. Peter.
No, thank you. Well, thank you very much to the CPS. Only the CPS would have had the courage and the conviction to publish this book. And the CPS, of course, has a famous record of being right on every great economic issue of the age. This is a feature of the CPS which distinguishes it from the Financial Times and the BBC and the CBI, all of which are like a clock. They're always wrong. Very useful contrary indicators, otherwise useless. I'd just like to say, first of all, just thanks to a few people. Christopher Booker is one of those. I think I plagiarised his work mercilessly in this. He really was onto the case 12 years ago. I don't think he's here today, but his Sunday Telegraph column was marvellous. And the other one is Lord Pearson, not here either, but David Keithley is. The Minotaur media tracking has enabled us to see what the BBC was doing 12 years ago. The BBC's records are unavailable, but because of Minotaur media tracking, Francis and I were able to do some really thorough investigative work, and that was entirely due to David Keithley. David, I really think that you've done a fantastic job over the years. I'd also like to thank Ryan Bourne, who kept us honest on economic statistics, and really did a lovely summary, and my great old friend Tom Greaves, who always comes to rescue with his fact-checking and analytical skills at later stages and something. And thank you, Tom. Thank you. And Francis, you've been wonderful, and we've really had fun writing this together. I do really want to make 2 points about, before we have another drink. The first one is, I do think it's time for the people who supported the euro to explain themselelves. What we have had, if you look at the Liberal Democrat conference last week, they're still using the same vicious and venomous language about Eurosceptics. Did you hear Danny Alexander, allegedly the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, talking about Eurosceptics, or as he called them, sort of nationalists, being enemies of growth? Excuse me, Danny, if we'd listened to you, there wouldn't be a British economy now, and we'd be taking orders from the European Central Bank and the IMF. And I think this is a point we shouldn't be forgotten. And I feel that the pro-Europeans, and it's very important that they do continue to have a role in our national debate. There's a very honourable history of Euro-federalism in this country, but they must come to terms with the fact that they got the greatest economic issue of our age utterly and completely wrong. Bravo! And some of us, I'm afraid, need to do more than that. They need us to give us apologies. And those are the ones not who did more than just get it wrong. They were abusive and insulting and questioned the motives of the Eurosceptics. Philip Stevens of the Financial Times seems to have declined his invitation.
But we are very grateful that some
nevertheless
of the FTA here.
But his remark that William Hague immaturity was the best explanation for William Hague's opposition to the European Union. To the euro, the European single currency. William Hague always was very clear about the European Union. Was a wretched remark from a distinguished political commentator. And Philip Stevens is one of those, along with Aronovich, along with Rawnsley, who blackened the motives, who portrayed very honourable men in extremely poor light, questioned their integrity, in some cases made accusations they were fascists. From those people, we need an apology. And actually, we just like them to come to terms with the fact that what they wrote 10 years ago, Rawnsley and Aronovich, they wrote again and again against the Eurosceptics, again and again for the single currency. We did a count. We haven't heard. Over the last 2 years, you'd have thought that the euro might have been a bit of a subject for Rawnsley, being a political commentator. He hasn't mentioned it once. We've counted 179 articles by Rawnsley which haven't mentioned the euro. Come on, Rawnsley! Cowardice! Same applies, by the way, to Aronovich. Not a single mention of the euro from Aronovich. Week in and week out, he'd blacken them, he'd damn them, he'd accuse them of, compare them to Mosley. Well, it's time we heard from these people, because otherwise we can't, in this country, have a proper public debate. But what we're really here to do is do something else, is to celebrate a very small, brave band of unfashionable people who put up with incredible abuse and insult, who were treated like absolute rubbish, as if they were mad, insane, Little Englanders, xenophobes, racists, by the BBC, by the FT, by the CBI, by all fashionable opinion, and they saved this country. They saved this country from economic degradation. They saved this country from political collapse. I'd just like to make a little toast to those small band of unfashionable people who saved Britain. Yeah.